All right, I'll ask a question if I could.
Sure.
Maybe a decade ago, Tara Smith wrote an article called The Menace of Pragmatism for the Objective Standard. And I didn't even know much about pragmatism at the time. It wasn't something that I thought about. It was one of those things that seemed kind of out there in philosophy and something that just felt, but it's come back so much in vogue now in pragmatism. So would you speak a bit to it? And I'll challenge you and say, well, look, if pragmatism does get you out of, if it gets you out of the fix, if it works, then why not? It seems to work for people who practice it. So speak a bit about pragmatism if you could.
So I'd say, first I would say, look, pragmatism and being practical are not the same thing. And I think people confuse the two in the culture. So they say I'm being pragmatic when they mean I'm being practical. I'm taking facts of reality and I'm trying to apply them to solve a problem. So a lot of times people conflate the two in an innocent way, and what they're really after is being practical, which I think is a positive. So that's first. I wouldn't condemn every use of the word pragmatism, that particularly a general layman uses it. Beyond that, look, Ayn Rand, I think, said that pragmatism is really the American philosophy. America, since the American philosophy in the 20th century, since the founders, there have been no real American philosophers, with the exception of the pragmatists and then Ayn Rand, of course. And they came to dominate, unfortunately, the philosophical framework in America. And it seems kind of American, right? We're just about getting stuff done. Forget about these abstract ideas. Leave me alone with the idealism. We're just trying to get stuff done. And if it works, let's do it again. And if it doesn't work, then let's ignore it and move on. And don't confuse me with principles. Don't confuse me with abstractions. Let's just get the work done. All right, looks like Jennifer's joined us, or somebody's joined us. So there's Jennifer. Cool. So it really has dominated America, particularly because America, and America's been dominated by, I'd say, the dominant feature of American culture, the thing that differentiates American culture from the other culture, is its orientation towards business, its orientation towards production. Businessmen, I think, drive American culture. It's, I think, what has saved us to a large extent, over the, over the last century or more. So businessmen who are practical, but who have shunned philosophy because philosophy, as they've learned it, as it has been taught, has been impractical, have basically adopted this idea that what they're doing is pragmatism. But it's not. Whether if you read any of the business, like How to Succeed in Business kind of books, they all lay out principles. They might not be explicitly philosophical principles, but almost all of them are principles that you can connect, that are associated with, implicitly, with accepting a certain view of the world. And to be successful in business, boils down to think, right? To rationality, to very much the objectivist virtue. Again, they say it differently. Almost every business book will say, look at the facts. Don't let your emotions intervene. Don't just listen
measure success.
Yeah, measure success. Again, measure it based on facts. So, honesty. A lot of the virtues that come out of objectivism are listed, but they can't connect it to philosophy. So for them, they view it as, and this is what they say. Oh, this is just, I'm being practical.
Well,
because
and
they
it seems
don't have the philosophical link. They don't have the abstract link. Go ahead, Jim.
It seems in today's world, and I guess it has for a couple centuries, as though philosophy is synonymous with baloney.
Yes.
So you can see why for them there's this natural, hey, your ideas are great in an ideal world, but here's the practical reality. So yeah, I completely concur.
And they shun it completely. So Now, there is philosophical pragmatism. Comes out of the American, the Deweys and the James. And the philosophical pragmatism says, look, there's no such thing as principle. All we have is direct empirical evidence. You test stuff out, it works, you do it. If it doesn't work, you don't do it. You can't think long-term. It doesn't mean anything to think long-term. And it's just concrete reality. Abstractions don't matter. They don't exist. And therefore principles are out. And I think that
that's what we have today.
What's that?
I think that's what dominates today.
And that's what dominates. Unfortunately, I think it's even infected some business people, but it is certainly dominates our political realm and our intellectual realm. So our politicians are certainly across the spectrum, with exception maybe of some radicals on the left and some principled, radicals on the right. And radicals here just mean they're consistent in their applications. So nationalist conservatives are not pragmatic; they're more ideological. Some of the real socialists on the left are principled and idealistic, but most of the center is pragmatic and has been for decades. I think. I mean, Ayn Rand was shocked. If you read her in the '60s, was shocked at John F. Kennedy's pragmatism. She thought John F. Kennedy was a new low in politics because of how pragmatic he was. Now, if you compare John F. Kennedy to Donald Trump, I mean, John F. Kennedy was a principled ideologue, right? Idealist as compared to Donald Trump. So we have deteriorated to the point where pragmatism is elevated to it's everything, right? I mean, Donald Trump has said in a number of occasions, if it works, I don't care. I don't care if I lied in order to get it. I don't care if what I said wasn't completely accurate. I don't care if I insulted some people. I don't care if I was disrespectful. What matters is, did it work? And he says it worked, so I don't care. And he has elevated pragmatism in a way that I've never seen before. Because he's willing to abandon all virtue, including primarily honesty, for the sake of it. And he's willing to, and he's proud of it, right? Other people, when they're pragmatic and they know they violated a certain moral principle that the culture in some way has or hasn't, they apologize for it, or they hide it, or they're kind of hesitant about it. No, Donald Trump is a proud pragmatist, and virtue matters not to him. It doesn't matter one iota. And it's one thing for a politician to be that way, but what I find scary about the American public right now is that they're buying it without criticism. That is, they're buying his pragmatism. They're saying, look, he gets stuff done. I see it all the time. I get people, he cut taxes. I don't care what he says. I don't care how he did it. He cut taxes. Or he's deregulating. It doesn't matter. They don't really look at how much he's deregulating, but, there's no, everybody accepts, even people who used to be good on foreign policy now say, well, you got to try to talk to the murderous dictator of North Korea, right? You got to try. What's the alternative? War. The only option is to talk to him. It's never worked ever, talking to evil, well, but you never know if this time it might work. Pragmatism in action. And it's infected so many people who I think were a little better, let's say, if, a decade ago, 2 decades ago. I think that deterioration towards anti-cognition, which is what pragmatism is, it's a non-cognition, it's not principle, it's non-abstraction, it's non-long-term, it's completely, concrete bound and in the moment. That the fact that it's infected the landscape and infected our voters, I find incredibly dangerous. And at the end, non-sustainable. I think in the end, there'll be a backlash against this. This is a kind of, you remember Leonard Peikoff's Dim, where he talks about D? Well, this is a D on the right? This is a completely disintegrated view coming from the right now. And one of the cases Leonard makes in Dim is disintegration is not sustainable. It cannot last. People want an integrated view, even if it's integrated around the wrong principle. And I think both the left and now Donald Trump's right are leading us towards a future in which people will demand a bad integration, demand some kind of authoritarianism of the left, authoritarianism of the right. that I think it'll be of the right, but it's less important. What they'll demand is something to integrate around, something that is, that is authoritarian, where they get told what to do, because this pragmatism clearly is not going to work. It's going to lead to disasters, and then they're going to be again flustered about, okay, so what do we do now?
Isn't it a shame, though, how being uncompromising sounds to most Americans, I think, like a drumbeat for war, constant war. And I think it's just the opposite.
Absolutely. I always say, all you have to do is once, flatten somebody once, and everybody else will start behaving. There's no more wars. It's the fact that you're weak which creates the opportunity for war after war after war, because people are constantly testing you. People are constantly pushing you to see
how far can we go?
How far you will go. I mean, Trump's response to Iran right now, I mean, he could have said, it's none of our business, let the Saudis take care of it. I'm open to that. I don't think it's a good response, but he could have done that. But no, he's doing a half measure of sending troops over there, but not being, so what are the Iranians? Oh, so he's not going to do anything, so they're going to try again. And they're going to drag him into a war, not on our terms, a war he's not fully committed to, and a war that he'll lose, or we will all lose in the end. So an assertive foreign policy actually reduces, and this is how principles work. It's the slow pragmatism, it's the slow, unprincipled view that creates conflict and war in foreign policy and creates complete disintegration locally.
Trump's crazy seemed like an asset at first. I think we found out what his policy is indirectly.
Yeah, no, crazy is never a good policy, I don't think, even when things are bad. Jonathan, did I answer that, or is there another aspect you wanted?
Great. I'll button up for myself, saying that, as someone who's tried to be in the sphere of debating ideas, I can understand why Dr. Smith talked about pragmatism as a menace, because it's like trying to fight a ghost. There's nothing to fight against, and yet somehow they're able to stand on a platform with you and say, hey, the results speak for themselves. And, so I hope we get some integration on even bad premises as opposed to no premises principles at all.
I mean, even the socialist I debated this last week, I had high expectations because I read his book. I didn't read his book. I read the first chapter in his book, which is a long chapter. And I thought, okay, this guy's at least principled. He's a socialist. He's got a view of socialism. It's clear. It's evil. It's really bad, but it's clear. It's principled. He's got an ideal. And
but then he wimps out when he gets in front of the crowd.
So in the first debate, he tried to stick to it, right? So in the first debate, hopefully we'll get the video soon. He's more principled, and I think the debate is at a more sophisticated level, but he's then frustrated that we're not talking about concrete issues enough because it's more abstraction. So in the second debate, we start talking about more concrete issues, and now he's already hedging, right? So now he's saying, well, we can try socialized medicine, and then if certain aspects of it don't work, we can always privatize them. And look, I believe in competition.
Call it a win for you.
Yeah, it was bizarre how much he moved during the debates, and of course he became the audience became more favorable towards him because now it seemed like he was just a mainstream guy. Although I know he's a wacky in the sense of really principled socialist who wants to take us towards collectivized everything.
Yaron, if I could say something, this is one of the things that I love about your debates is that you get in there and you are almost always the one operating on principle. Sometimes you get people who are similarly principled, but most of them they get mired in the concretes, and they get mired in attempts to appeal.
Yep.
And I think you come off, even if people disagree with you, you come off looking like you care more, like you know what you're talking about.
So at some point during the debate, the socialist said to the crowd, the one thing I really respect about Yaron is he's completely consistent and he doesn't bend at all. And it was
people respect that.
Yeah. I mean, he even respected that.
And to begin with, I wonder if I can ask you to capsulize. I know this is difficult. Can I ask you to capsulize your philosophy? What is Randism?
First of all, I do not call it randyism, and I don't like that name. I call it objectivism.
All right.
Meaning a philosophy based on objective reality. Now let me explain it as briefly as I can. First, my philosophy is based on the concept that reality exists as an objective absolute, that man's mind, reason, is his means of perceiving it, and that man needs a rational morality. I am primarily the creator of a new code of morality which has so far been believed impossible, namely a morality not based on faith.
On faith.
Not on faith, not on arbitrary whim, not on emotion, not on arbitrary edict, mystical or social, but on reason, a morality which can be proved by means of logic, which can be demonstrated to be true and necessary.
How does objectivism differ from the philosophies that many of us have been exposed to in our youths? Philosophies based upon religions, theologians, dogmatists.
The very first difference, objectivism tells you that it is not right, it is not proper to man to take anything on faith. Religion is a matter of faith. You accept a religion emotionally or because you were born to it. You have not chosen it rationally. What objectivism will tell you is that reason, man's reason is his basic means of survival. That is the most important faculty which he has, and he has to guide his life and make his choices by means of his rational faculty. He has to make his own choices, but he has to know how to make them. It is immoral for him to act on his emotions, to be guided by the whim of the moment. That objectivism holds as very wrong, very immoral. And morality, in fact, consists of following your reason to the best of your ability. So that rationality is the basic virtue from which all the others proceed.
My morality is based on man's life as a standard of value. And since man's mind is his basic means of survival, I hold that if man wants to live on earth and to live as a human being, he has to hold reason as an absolute, by which I mean that he has to hold reason as his only guide to action, and that he must live by the independent judgment of his own mind, that his highest moral purpose is the achievement of his own happiness, and that he must not force other people, nor accept their right to force him, that each man must live as an end in himself and follow his own rational self-interest.
Tell me the value of selfishness.
Use another word, self-esteem. The value of selfishness is that you esteem yourself as a value, that you live according to your nature, which means by the judgment of your own mind, and you respect your own mind, you respect your own ability to do the right thing, therefore you respect the possibility of being a morally virtuous person, and you regard yourself as a value worth preserving. To make a success of yourself in any line of rational activity is a great virtue. And people will attack you for exercising your ability, for hard work, for consistency, for ambition. And they will want to make you feel guilty of it. That is the greatest evil, according to my philosophy.
And wait, say that again. The greatest evil, according to your philosophy, is to attack an individual because of virtue.
What I call it is to experience or act on hatred of the good for being the good. That is attacking people for their virtues, for their achievements, for anything they have which is a value, actually, not for their flaws and not for their evil. In fact, people who preach that are the ones who are mawkish about the evil people, the failures, the liars, the cheats, everybody who is weak suddenly acquires some kind of value. But anyone who is a success has to be attacked for his success.
And look at how you have been attacked.
Oh, I know.
How you have been criticized. There are
You know that?
There are many people in this country, forgive me, in this world who think you're daft.
They don't. They want you to listen to that.
Using the super chat, and I noticed yesterday when I appealed for support for the show, many of you stepped forward and actually supported the show for the first time. So I'll do it again. Maybe we'll get some more today. If you like what you're hearing, if you appreciate what I'm doing, then I appreciate your support. Those of you who don't yet support the show, please take this opportunity. Go to yaronbrookshow.com/support or go to subscribestar.com, Yaron Brook Show, and make a kind of a monthly contribution to keep this going. I'm not sure when the next